Hey everyone, we'll give everybody 1 minute to give people enough chance to join here, and then we'll jump in. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk about some strategies for reducing donor churn and how we have some tools that might help that. Quick introductions. Well, first we'll give a shout out to Brian from Microsoft. Brian is actually not with us today. I believe he's on vacation. But we appreciate his help and collaboration in setting this up, and we'll certainly say some good things about Microsoft on his behalf. Quick introduction. So myself, my name's Todd Johnson. I'm with FormusPro. I run our business here in North America. My colleague from across the pond, Matthew, who's our practice lead for our customer engagement practice. And Matt, I'll let you give a little background on yourself there.
Thanks, Todd. Yep. Hi, everyone. Matthew Hockaday. I've been doing Dynamics CRM for about 12 years, but consultancy in general for 16. And my Dynamics journeys had me going from a rookie in product and developer world through each rung of the consultancy ladder until I became a solution architect at FormusPro, and then finally for the last 12 months, as Todd said, as the practice lead for customer engagement. I've been at FormusPro about 6 years, and throughout that time and previous employment, I've specialised in sort of membership not-for-profit area, a bit of higher education, and also local government here in the UK. I'm trying to stay hands-on with the client and product.
And that's an understatement, and that's why he's here. He knows this. He knows these things very well here. So I want to jump in and give you a little background on who we are, because it's entirely possible you wouldn't heard of us before, and that's okay. So we are very much a Microsoft partner, and we'll talk a bit today about how we use Microsoft technology to help our clients. Focused on what Microsoft calls the Dynamics 365 product stack. We'll try to keep this not overly technical today, just give you an idea of what the product set can do, but that's certainly our specialty, and that's we work very hard to get all the right credentials, and kudos from Microsoft, and we're proud of that in our relationship. We do have very much a focus on nonprofit organizations, so that's something and for me personally, I think it's really interesting. I've been in this business a long time, but being able to take the same technology and have clients that have true impact with what they do is pretty cool. That's actually very satisfying. We love doing that. So the company's been around just over 12 years. Just had our 12th birthday last month, I think. Growing quickly, and we've gotten some acknowledgement and some recognition for that, in particular in the UK for how we're doing there. These days we're operating in the UK as well as here in the US. And so this is what we do, deep focus on Microsoft technology, and we help our clients get the most out of what that technology can bring to you. There's a number of things in the Dynamics 365 catalog. We're going to drill in on just a couple of those today. Hopefully give us examples of, where you can get the most value out of those products. So donor management, that's really some of the overriding topic we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to try and show you, or Matt is, some areas where Dynamics 365 can be particularly useful, and some use cases that we commonly see with nonprofits. So areas like donor engagement, and then as well as some data and analytics, sort of things along the way. There's certainly some marketing components to this as well. One of the things you'll see continuously through this, it wouldn't be a Microsoft-led presentation these days, and we didn't mention Copilot. That's because it's pretty important. It's no longer just sort of a new thing, future sort of thing. These are things you can do today, and I would sort of describe it as it's baked into the product set. It's not like we have to go and implement a system, then come back later and say, oh, hey, how do we apply some AI to this? It's absolutely embedded within the product, and we've got some interesting ways how you can take advantage of that. So quick agenda, we'll go through, what is donor churn? What are the challenges, involved in that? And then try to give you some best practices and ideas on how to prevent that. And really about how you engage and build those sort of long-term relationships with those donors that are so important. How do you get that most value of what is there in the technology stack? Because there's a lot of power in there. One of the things that we think we're pretty good at is helping our clients unlock that and take advantage of what's there in the tool set. There's two areas that so Dynamics 365 is sort of the broader product catalog, if you will. And we'll talk about a couple of components of that. In particular, there's the module called Customer Insights that we think is pretty interesting. We'll spend some time on that. And with that, I'll get out of the way, and I'll let Matt start to dive in and tell you what we can do here.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks very much. So hi, everyone. Yep. First of all, we're going to talk about donor churn, and we need to understand what that is. First of all, let's understand what a donor is. So that is a person or organization that's making a gift of money or clothes or food to a charity or nonprofit. What do we know about them? We're dependent on the quality of those donors, and what we know about them is all the data we store against them. So that's everything we capture at either the point of donation or even the first time we interact with them. And it's important that we're asking them that information about why they're donating and how they came to hear about us. So the next thing then, once they're donating, we're identifying those who are losing engagement, they're at risk of churn. So how do we identify them? So we look for a change in patterns, and this is where the tool set can help us identify those. So is that a lack of communication or a lack of engagement? Is it their commitment amount changing? Are they attending or maybe not attending something which they would regularly turn up to? Is there a drop off in their web visits, to indicate that they're losing interest? And if they are, we need to grab it, take action, and get their interest back again. So a lot of today is focusing on what we do when we realize that and how we can prevent it in the first place. So it really depends on the donor themselves, but the worst thing we can do is do nothing and just hope that they donate again. So we'll try and do some proactive measures to keep them engaged. Some of the reasons for donor churn, then, I guess, are they could be key challenges facing all nonprofits or all charities in retaining their donors. And it's a mixture of sort of all three of these things. So there are some external factors, nothing that we can plan for really. So, an economic slump, that could be a direct reason for reduction in donation numbers or donation amounts. Natural disasters, locationally or worldwide. And of course, pandemic. We're all very familiar with how that can impact us these days. And I think the key here is that we as charities or not-for-profits, we need to be reactive. These are things that people aren't expecting, and so we haven't planned for this, but let's do something about it. Be that, a mailer sympathizing with either the victims or everyone if it's a pandemic. Yeah, a bit of empathy, choose the right tone in your mailer. Everyone's going through something pretty terrible. So just relating to the donors, I think. And then internal factors. So being open and honest, reporting where, a lot of people are giving money. Where's that being used? Let's make sure that we're honest and we're retaining trust. That's probably one of the most important internal factors. And if we can identify sort of trends or gaps, and we can use that to create some opportunities and get people engaging again. How do we do that? Well, we need to analyze internal factors, identify things. So is it the time when maybe we're not engaging quickly enough and people are losing interest? Maybe we're not personalizing our engagement enough. So that's something we can do. Do we need to gather more information? It's very hard to sort of segment our audience if we don't have the information to do that with. Or do we need to run some more events? Maybe an in-person event's going to sort of spike engagement once again. So these are some options. How do we identify those at-risk donors before they churn? So now we know our donors. How can we identify patterns? And how can we check for donors that we're in danger of losing? So one example of that could be, as Todd said earlier, using Copilot. This is probably the most technical piece of the presentation, so I'll prefix that with a bit of warning. So on the screen now, we're actually using Copilot directly. We've got a Power App here, and all it does is storing a load of data about our donors. So it's a load of create data for the purposes of the demo, and we can use Copilot to do some fancy analysis on our behalf. So in this example, we saw a bunch of customers, and we can feed those into a model for predicting donor churn directly. You can see here we've got a churn likelihood percentage based on our specific customers. So it's done that by feeding all that customer data. We can say what we want to predict, and we can say where we want to store the outcome. It takes a few seconds when you're feeding, depending on the amount of data you're feeding into the model, for it to do its analysis. So there's a sort of, hey presto, here's one I created earlier. But the output of that is a table of analytics. So once it's done its analysis, it'll give you the results where it's predicted whatever we asked it to, in this case, the likelihood percentage of donor churn. So that's all well and good, but what can we do with that? Well, utilizing other parts of the Microsoft stack, we can feed that in and hand off to either Dynamics, or we're using on screen now, for example, Power Automate. We can actually use that information to generate a flow, and that can reach out to those with low percentages, or just create a task for those with high percentages to maybe thank them for recent engagement, for example. But there are lots of ways. So that's using Copilot directly. There are lots of ways, as Todd referred to earlier, we can make use of that built into the system. We'll see those as we go along. So one of the good ways of sort of maintaining engagement and preventing donor churn is personalization. So delivering personalized experiences to donors and volunteers, it's not really a nice to have, it's kind of essential these days for encouraging continued interest, engagement, and encouraging our donors to make donations. So Accenture did a global study. They found that 59% of supporters in the US would be willing to contribute at least 10% more for a personalized experience. So if we just start personalizing our emails and our targeted marketing, all of a sudden there's an increase in donations, and that rises significantly to 72% for millennials. All those potential new donors are going to be highly more likely to donate. Fellow marketers, there's a stat on the screen there. 74% of marketers know that personalization increases customer engagement. Rather shockingly, the same study highlighted that only 19% of marketers are actually doing that. So even though they know it does it, they're not doing it. And why might that be? Well, typically the problem lies with having a lack of data. So not knowing enough about the person will prevent us personalizing the data. Personalization being making our communications relevant to the individual. So if we don't know about a donor's transactions, we don't know about their personal interests or preferences, maybe we can't join that up with their contact history, so their log of calls, emails, all the times they visited our website to make donations, maybe even event attendance, and any social media activity if they've shared their handles with us. So problem number one, collecting the data, and then problem number two, unifying that. So the product stack using customer insights data assists in that. That allows you to unify data across multiple data sources. So not only what's in your Microsoft Dynamics stack, but you can join it with third-party database as well, maybe a finance system, and give that total donor amounts over a specified time period. Join it all up and use that to target them directly. And then even though we want to personalize content, we need consistent branding. So the value of our outgoing emails can be degraded if the branding and the theme isn't consistent across the journey because we're trying to personalize it too much. So don't compromise on your brand. So using the tool directly, we'll cover off some of the best practices for personalizing. So some examples here. The Customer Insights journeys offer some powerful personalization capabilities. For example, you can set default values for personalized data. You can preview the content. You can even personalize text messages and push notifications as well, so not just emails. I've found in the past a classic failure of sort of any marketing communication trying to use personalization, using dynamic fields, for example, where they want to pull in someone's personal information. So dear first name, for example. I've lost count of the amount of times I've had a sales email saying dear blank or dear and then literally the word first name, where the merge has failed to happen. So the tool set allows you to set some default values as well. So whilst we want dear first name to merge in Matthew, in my case, if we haven't got that first name for every single one of our donors, we can have a default value. So it would say dear customer, which is going to be a lot better than dear absolutely nothing. Yeah, so default values would be one. You can use dynamic fields as well. It's important to note that we can personalize the content out of our emails or notifications as long as we've got the data in the system. So again, it's all about getting good data in the first place, and we can use that not only to segment but to personalize our messages. Another thing that the tool let you do is not just single field personalization. It'll let you produce lists. So where a donor has a relationship with many other things in Dynamics. For example, these are the list of the events you attended this year, or these are the significant funds you donated to this year. That'd be really good to put in a personalized email, and then it lets them know that that email is specific to them, their donation history and their journey. And that's kind of the key at personalizing. And what does personalizing do? Well, it helps us build lasting and engaging relationships. No one wants to be one in a million. They want to feel very special. And so that's what the personalization can do. And it might sound simple, but it's important. Mass marketing is not targeted marketing. So two very different things. So one way we can ensure that we're getting the right people is to create useful segments as well. So we want to tailor the communications to that segment, then personalize the communications to the individual donor within that cohort. The system itself can recognize how to optimize and personalize donor journey across multiple channels and touch points. So we don't want to appear to be a very 2D marketing team for our charity or nonprofit. Always sending out an email every month. It looks very automated. It looks very robot. Maybe mix it up. So combinations of email. We can do unified sort of social media broadcasts across all the channels that we're present on, and the tool can help you schedule those as well. Maybe mix in an SMS or a push notification, or have the system help you host an online, like a Teams event, or even an in-person event, get that personal touch. You can use customer insights journeys for channel optimization as well. So built into the tool, it will utilize AI and find the best channel to reach an individual directly, which will improve your engagement. And that's obviously based on history and customer preferences. I remember, don't go overboard. It's quite key. So our donors are going to fall into multiple segments. And so where they're picked up by one that you've arranged to send email out on week 1, if they also fall into segment 2 and we intend to email them again next week, that might be a bit overkill. So we want to be engaged, but not an excessive email barrage. So one thing we can do is we can use segments to exclude people as well. So it might be, I want to send all the people who meet all of this criteria, but maybe not those who've also been contacted already by us in the last 14 days. You can use that to filter out, so we're not barraging those donors. So audience is a segment, but also it can indicate a segment for people who we don't want to be part of the audience. So the system will help you build segments as well. So our audience segmentation, when you're building them within Customer Insights journeys, using AI built in, we can have natural language. So show me all my customers whose birthday is this month, for example, if you want to send out a birthday email. Or you can do manual input and build the queries themselves. So this column in this table must equal this value to create a segment that way. And we can create static segments. Those are really good for something that is happening in a specific time frame. So we want to highlight all the people who meet the criteria right now, because maybe there's an event next week. So everyone who lives in that area, come to this event in this place. It's no good to us if they move in 2 months after the event. So a static list is good for that. A dynamic segmentation or dynamic list is really useful to add people into journeys when they meet certain criteria or they hit a threshold. Without any additional configuration, you set that dynamic segment up front. Use that as the audience for a specific journey. For example, I want all donors who've donated over a certain amount in a calendar year to become a diamond. We'll classify them as a diamond. Or maybe myself, weeks 1 through 13, I'd only pledged a certain amount every month. Week 14, I do an additional donation on top of my normal pledge, and all of a sudden I've gone over that threshold. I automatically get added to the dynamic diamond segment, and that might trigger another built-in journey for me. I might get a thank you email, reflecting the milestone I've just hit, a summary of all the differences I've made with that money that's been going to that charity that year. Audiences and segments can be built using query, as we've talked about. So that's a donor has this attribute or a donor has this value. It can be used. They can be built using behavior. So that could be a donor has done this. So they clicked an email, they attended an event, or they visited a website. Or finally, of course, we can use segments. So another segment, they meet this criteria in segment A, but they also meet this criteria in segment B. But we can use we can use or to be inclusive, or we can use but not to exclude people based on meeting a certain criteria. So the system will help you build those. And what does a segment do? Well, it selects the audience for our journeys. So the tool has some features for building customer journeys, which we'll take a look at now as well. So they're built in kind of like a flow diagram, very visual editor, drag and drop features for getting the little tiles onto the journey builder. So you can see right at the start, we set the audience with the plus button, and then the journey kicks off. And then first thing we do in this journey, for example, is send an email. And then we want to do something based on that person's interaction with the email, or not, as the case may be. So we can have segment-based triggers or event-based triggers to kick the journey off. Then once they've opened the email, we might want to, like the orange block suggests, do something or even wait before we do something. Let's give the donor a chance to digest the email. You know, if you're at work and you get a few emails, you read one, you think, oh, I'll deal with that at the weekend. What we don't want to do is assume that they've had a chance to digest it and then bombard them. So we'll give them a week, let them digest it, and then we can analyze, have they then clicked on a link in that email? Have they opened it? You know, what did they do? What did they click on? And based off that, we can change the journey experience without any additional setup. So if they opened it, yes, we can branch down here, send them a second email with a new offering because we know they're engaged. If no, let's wait a week. And then if they still haven't, let's send them a different email. Maybe they didn't like the theme of that one or the content, so we'll send them something else. So just ways of driving engagement. We can also personalize the engagement as well, depending on their engagement. So we can use the journey tool to generate an email, if appropriate, to call them, maybe a link to a donation page if they've clicked or read a particular area of the website that they're expressed an interest. We can guide them to update their subscription preferences, for example. And all of these tasks or tiles can do triggers or flows directly back into Dynamics if need be. So hand in hand with the journeys is building lasting engaging relationships, is of course learning from the data and the experiences. So as part of the journey builder, we build our email templates. And as part of sending them out, for example, we can use A/B testing. So that's where we want to send 10% of our segment one template, 10% a second. And then depending on the metric which we choose, so that's click through or opens, for example, the remainder will get either A or B, whichever wins out. And if the results are inconclusive, we can set a default. So we'll go with A unless B is better, for example. And that obviously works for that particular journey, but we can use those insights for future template generation and design. Further for that, we can look at insights around a specific journey. So you can see we've got the branched path we were looking at earlier, and we can see the journey performance using AI insights from the product itself. So insights into the audience behaviors. So on the diagram on the right, you can see each tile. You can see, you click on the tile, you get an overview in this data section here of how the contacts flow through the structure, which path they chose to follow, where they might have had problems, or bounces, stalls, whatever. All of that information is available and can help us build better journeys in future and stay more engaged. So we're looping back around to the tech itself then. So all of the screens you've seen are utilizing Dynamics 365. All of the data in the product sits in the Dataverse, and it can use what we call Power Platform, which we'll cover off in a minute, to drive automation or link off to other third-party tools as well. The marketing tool for Dynamics is Customer Insights Journeys, which we've mentioned a few times. So that gives you marketing automation, campaign automation for fundraising. Real-time dynamic segments I described to you for building those donor journeys. We can create and send emails and do our A/B testing. And of course, calling back to customer insights data as well, we can analyze multiple sources of data. So a donor isn't just what data we saw about them in Dynamics 365, but it's data across all of our platforms and all of our systems, all brought into one view. And it can do things like prediction, focus on segments, reduce churn. Power Platform then, so that is integrated natively with the Dynamics suite, and it just gives you access to all these additional tools. We saw Power Automate for generating automation and flows. And that doesn't just have to come from Dynamics. It can hook up with connectors to other third-party systems as well. Power Pages is the online portal offering from Dynamics. So a customer can log in, they can see their history, they can update their own details, they can raise cases if they're having problems, or they can make donations directly through the portal. Power Virtual Agents, again, if people are looking for assistance specifically on your website or portal, then the Power Platform can drive that as well through bot-based interaction or even person-based sort of customer service chatbots on the website. And then finally in that list is Power BI. So that's a powerful analytics tool. It uses Dataverse for one of its data sources, which Dynamics is sat on. But of course, you can also add other third-party data applications, create a data warehouse, get analytics from that, and bring all the data into a single place. There's a lot of potential using the Power Platform toolset.
All right, well, Matt, when you take a breath there, and let me go back. There's a couple of things that I apologize. I should have introduced earlier here. So first off, hey, yeah, guess what? We love AI. I should have had the standard disclaimer. And there's some of the logos and some of the visuals that you saw, and they were actually created with AI because it's a pretty powerful tool. So we kind of like that. So that's where some of the things that if they look a little funky, hey, that's why. Everything I should have mentioned, I'll mention on Microsoft's behalf since Brian couldn't join us today, is that if you're not aware, Microsoft has some very attractive, accessible licensing options for nonprofits, right? So we're talking, this is the latest and greatest technology. They make it very, very, accessible for nonprofits to leverage that for your organization. So. And then one thing, I saw the question in the chat, and I'll just expand on that. And then, if we have other questions, we've got a little time, we can take that. So yeah, the personalization, and this is a deep topic in itself, but it's really all about making that donor, feel seen, feel appreciated, feel known. And to do that, you need the data on them, right? And so that's what Dynamics 365 does. It gives you that system of record where you can keep the an ongoing long-term relationship record of all interactions that you have with that individual or any stakeholder, right? And so then once you have that, that then becomes the basis of doing some pretty interesting and advanced, marketing sort of things. And Matt mentioned some things that are, can look a little complex. It's the tool set that enables that and actually, can automate that, right? And so it could be as simple as, having preferences is like, hey, I'd rather get a text than an email. I get too many emails, things like that. And, you can record things like that. And once you have that, then you've got data that you can now fine tune and build out your marketing messages, based on that. So things like, if you easily be able to pull a list of contributors for a certain event or for a certain, project, be able to reach out back to them and show them an example of, hey, here's what the impact of that was, right? So you wouldn't necessarily want to send that to everyone, but for those that, hey, you participated in this, thank you, here was the result of that. That's, that can be a pretty compelling message. And it gives you the ability to segment your donors and your audience to be able to have that kind of communication with that. So and again, there's having having the data all in one place, that's what makes this work. And then having these really comprehensive marketing tools sitting on top of that make it a lot easier for even a small organization to do some pretty advanced things. So with that, Matt, thanks for your time. Thanks everybody for joining us, and reach out if you have questions. Otherwise, have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd.